are you familiar with what I am what I was talking about here a minute ago
Yes.
about the new documents?
Oh no, I didn't realize there was new documents.
Yeah, they're not in Idaho. That's
Oh,
the thing, right? They're not in Idaho. So let me share the screen real quick. We'll talk about these, and then we'll go into it in a little bit further detail. So this is from. Oh man, let me turn this off. All right, so this here is out of Pennsylvania. This is referencing some witnesses that we may see come trial. All right, so we have one. This is and now this 5th day of June 2025 upon consideration and petition to summons directing witnesses or witness Ann Farham to attend and testify in and out of state criminal proceedings on the 30th day of June 2025 at 9 a.m. in courtroom 6 in Monroe County Courthouse. This is going to be in reference to the Bryan Kohberger case. There's one, and there's Jesse Harris. Jesse Harris, well, first and foremost, from what I understand, Anna Farham is one of the school professionals that worked at Bryan Kohberger's high school. This one is for Jesse Harris. This is the owner of the boxing gym that Bryan Kohberger had trained in. The next one is for Maggie Sanders. I'm not familiar with why she's on here. Next one is Ralph Vicino. Same thing. I believe I know who this is. I think I found who this is. This is an older person. Not sure what his connection is with Bryan Kohberger. Just found a Ralph Vicino associated in the Poconos. Then we have Michelle Bolger, who is the professor at DeSales who actually recommended Bryan Kohberger to the PhD program. All right, so let me pull this down real quick. And I got a couple of articles that I wanted to go over and kind of talks in a little bit about who these people are. So in a new court document filed in Pennsylvania, 5 individuals, including his former professor at DeSales University and a woman who works at a boxing gym where he used to train, were hit with summons connected to the trial. A woman who works at the boxing gym. Interesting. Maybe that's who one of the other persons were that I was not familiar. Maybe Maggie Sanders. Maybe there was an issue there. I don't know. The group was ordered to appear for a hearing on June 30th to show why they should not be called to testify in the high-profile trial in the Idaho summer trials. 2 other mystery individuals, Ralph Vicino and Maggie Sanders, have also been summoned. It is not clear from the court documents what is their purpose of their trial testimony would be, or whether they are being sought out as witnesses from the defense or the prosecution. However, this comes just days before Kohberger's team filed an amended mitigation witness list with the court of Idaho. Now, I wanted to kind of go through these with you there, Nina, and kind of pick your brain a little bit, and maybe we can discuss a little bit about why maybe perhaps they're picking some of these people, and if they're for the prosecution or the defense. So this document starts off with Jesse Harris, who was named on the boxing gym where Kohberger used to train, Ann Farham, an advisor at the school Kohberger attended, and Marie Bolger, a former professor who taught Kohberger at DeSales. Let's start off with Jesse Harris. What do you think, or who do you think would be calling Jesse Harris? Bryan Kohberger's side or the state?
well, I mean, I think that's going to be the state.
What do you think? Why do you think they're going to be bringing in Jesse Harris?
Because if it's going to be a student, because I think if it was a professor, they would put professor somebody, you know what I'm saying? Like they
Right.
did they address Bolger as professor?
Well, Bolger is the professor.
Yeah, but did they
And yes.
in the documents did they address
Oh,
her as
no.
professor?
In
Okay,
the documents, they did not. But that is Marie Bolger. She is
right.
the professor who recommended him to the PhD program.
Because I know that he had an altercation at DeSales in the library.
Right, but that was with John Snyder.
Okay, and they're not calling him at all?
Well, this is just for the witnesses out of Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
Yeah, these are the Pennsylvania witnesses that they intend on calling either in support of Bryan Kohberger or against Bryan Kohberger. Now, to me, I would say Jesse Harris, the boxing gym person, is probably going to attest the fact that Bryan Kohberger was physically fit enough to commit this crime. He had the dexterity to commit this crime. That was one of the things that the defense had been arguing in certain documentation in court orders and in pretrial hearings, that Bryan Kohberger lacked the dexterity to commit this crime. Well, they're going to get a boxing
Yeah,
gym
you.
trainer.
I don't think you jog 6 miles, do kickboxing and stuff like that without dexterity.
I agree. What about Anne Parham? I probably said that wrong, or maybe it's Farham. She was an advisor at the school Kohberger attended. Now, I'm going to read a little bit about this here. This is not to be confused with Miss Beers. Miss Beers is the person, right here, former administrator Tanya Carmela Beers had revealed Kohberger was briefly on a protective service track at a vocational school near his parents' Monroe County, Pennsylvania home. He was a leader in class. He took a class extremely serious. And let's see. But Kohberger, now 28, forced to leave the program in his junior year following a series of complaints from female classmates. So this is the first time that we hear that it's more than one. It is a series of complaints from female classmates. To be removed from the program.
There's actually an interview with her.
There could be. Yes, I think she's the one that said, I can't say why he was removed from the program, but now that given what he was charged with, it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I believe that's what the reference was, right?
So, I would definitely say that's going to be staged.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think this one, well, this is Camilla Beers. I'm assuming that if somebody is calling an administrator from the school district, it's probably going to be reference to this. I'm not sure what Carmela Beers actually had privilege to. If she had privilege to all documents, and or maybe some of these things are just things that she had heard. I don't know. But it goes on to say, go ahead.
I didn't realize that Miss Beers was actually like pretty high up in the special education department. I didn't realize it was special education.
It could be. And that may be why she's not being called, because she's not the administrator that gave out the punishments. She was only aware of the punishment. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so that's probably who this other person is, if I had to take my best guess. But this goes on to say that to be removed from the program, it has to be pretty severe. Camilla Beer said of the incident, though she declined to elaborate on the exact nature of the reports, would had him removed from the program, when I look back now, makes sense with what happened later, she recalled, referring to the bombshell allegations of Kohberger knifed 4 college students to death last fall. So I'm assuming it's probably going to be somebody who actually came down with why he was removed from the program. And now I know some more. I know that he went to go to the HVAC program, and that it didn't stop there, guys. He ended up not even finishing his junior year on in person. He finished it online, and he took his entire senior year online. I think we're going to find out why he was taking that senior year online with said witness from Pennsylvania. What do you think?
Most definitely.
The other thing I want to know
that's
is,
the thing. I don't think a lot of people realize that most of his college days were online.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he went to college during COVID, so a lot of courses were online, and we're definitely going to get into that. Let's see. The next one is going to be Marie Bolger. Now, Marie Bolger is a former professor who taught Kohberger at DeSales. She had some interesting things to say about his thesis and about, some of the things that he was looking into. She was one that said that his Reddit survey was a part of his thesis that he wrote, which, you know what, let's go into that one real quick, because I think this one's interesting. This one goes here because it only says her, so I wanted to dig up some information about what she said in the past. So it says here in an exclusive interview, DeSales University professor Michelle Bolger says that she's an absolute shock after hearing what former student has been accused of. He was a brilliant student, she told Daily Mail. I am shocked as at what he's been accused of. I don't believe it, but I get it, she said. Why do you think she said I get it? I think you're on mute, Nina.
I mean, I think that, with him, there's a big difference between book smarts and street smarts and common sense.
Yeah.
And sorry, my groceries just arrived. My daughter's getting them in. But I think that, being a great student and stuff like that is because at that moment he was turning his life around. And, I've always given him credit for the changes that he did make.
Right. But what do you think she
never
meant by I don't believe it, but I get it? What do you think that means?
Because I think that she knows that, just like the other one said, that it makes sense. People that worked with him and everything in hindsight now, I think that they're like, oh, dang, that little hair on my neck that stood up, I might should have paid attention to.
Right. Probably so. All right. This goes on to say Bolger, 33, who has been an associate professor at DeSales for the past 8 years, says she taught Kohberger 28. This was a year after the murders had occurred, or within a year after the murders occurred, last year in online classes, and helped him with his master's thesis project. He was an online student in the criminal justice master degree program and graduated in June of 2022. The program has a mock crime scene house where it gives our students hands-on practical experience in investigating criminal activity, said Joe Walsh, an instructor of computer science and criminal justice, and director of Masters of Arts in Criminal Justice, MACJ program. Bolger said she never met Kohberger in the flesh, but she knew him from his work online. I never saw him in person. I couldn't tell you how tall he was or how much he weighed. My only interaction with him was via email and Zoom. I didn't know anything about him, whether he was married or had a girlfriend, etc. But she said she never saw a dark side to the then 27-year-old graduate student. This news is upsetting. I have slept at all since hearing about Bryan. He seemed normal to me, but then again, I only knew him from teaching him online. I didn't know anything personal about him. I believe he worked full-time like most of our graduate students do. She said she only taught him one class, but called him a great writer and a brilliant student. He was always perfectly professional when I had interactions with him. In my 10 years of teaching, I only recommended 2 students to the PhD program, and he was one of them. He was one of my best students ever. Everyone is in shock over this. She said that she believed Kohberger wanted to pursue a career in academia, and after graduating from Washington State University, I was one of the professors who helped Bryan with his proposal on his graduate thesis. It caps his capstone project. He did put out a routine questionnaire for his thesis. It looks weird. I understand from the public view, but it's criminology and it's normal. It's criminology theory called script theory. It's a normal theory on how and why criminals commit their crime. But here's the thing, though, Ms. Bolger. Is it odd that he put out that survey so close to his graduation after the completion, basically, of his thesis? See, that was the big thing and the big ticker to me is this guy put out a survey once he was already done and graduating. Bolger goes on here to say, Bolger said Bryan didn't even end up using any of the data he gleaned from the questionnaire. Why? Because he took it too late. Bryan, she's looking at this from of a disbelief look, right? She's like, yeah,
well, you got to consider too that she's got to make light of it because she was a part of it.
Well, I don't think she's making light of it, but I don't think she's connecting the dots. The fact that he had a survey that is out there and she's saying, wow, she's in shock. She couldn't believe that he was able to do this because of how smart he was. But at the same time, there's some red flags here. He opened up a survey and talked about the criminal mind, but this was well after his thesis was already completed. In fact, she goes on to say that he didn't use any of it. Instead, she said because he ran out of time, his graduate thesis was a narrative one based on the information.
Right.
So wonder what he was all
so
planning
it was pretty much leftover research.
Right. And to me, though, I think that it was purposefully done in that manner so that way he can look into and talk to these violent criminals without arising suspicion from
Right.
anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and I mean, everybody wants to talk about, the things that he researched at WSU was probably for class. Class hadn't started yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was April of 2022 is when he posted up that Reddit survey, and I think he graduated May of 2022. So kind of right towards the end. And so if that's his MO, that he's kind of leaves everything to the end, he procrastinates and things of that nature. And then I find it weird that just a few months later that he's studying things before school starts. You know, he's
Right.
stu- if that is what he's doing when he's researching Ted Bundy and all these other things about serial killers. If that's what he's doing, I find it odd that he would be looking up those things when one his TA classes. We looked it up here on the show on the channel. You guys can go back and look up that episode. We broke down his courses that he was taking that year and the courses that he taught. And when it comes to those courses, none of them dealt with why criminals do what they do. I think one of them was like Criminology 101 and 320. Either way, none of them were the psychology aspect of why a serial killer does what he does, who they choose their victims for, blah, blah, blah. Any reasons why you would have used Ted Bundy or that researching on Ted Bundy at that time. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, because I mean, everybody wants to talk about, that, well, he wouldn't have done that. Look at what he was majoring in, and he was this and he was that. He was still 3 years away from graduation. I mean, he was a freshman, basically.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I did a little short video from an interview where they went to DeSales and they interviewed somebody about the house that they go and do the homicide investigations. And they said that he did not take not one class, that he would have ever been involved in any of that, that his major was the psychology, and that everything that he was taking for criminology was social science classes like physics and stuff like that.
Right. I don't know what classes he was taking at Washington. I think a lot of the classes that he would have been taking at DeSales would have crossed over. I think me and Dr. Vona had a conversation about this.
I was
And
so glad that y'all broke that down, though, saying, look, y'all, he's not as advanced, with the cloud forensics and all this as everybody wants to give him credit for.
right. Well, none of his courses that he was taking at that time were in that field. So,
Right.
I mean, that
Right.
doesn't mean that he didn't take any other courses beforehand. But the thing is, at the end of the day, he made a lot of dumb mistakes with his phone. It's odd that somebody with such experience would have made those mistakes. But then again, at the end of the day, to me, what he was trying to do is cover up the big things that normally catch people, and he was looking into all those. Well, it's not so much big things, just the little things that catch people. That he was too focused in on those little things that he made some major mistakes with the the things like taking his phone with him to begin with, like having leaving the sheath behind, etc. All right, so this goes on to say Ben Roberts, a criminology student, told Fox affiliate that Kohberger was confident and outgoing, but still appeared as if he was always looking for a way to fit in. Roberts said it's pretty out of left field. I had honestly just pegged him as super awkward. One thing he would always do, almost without fail, is find the most complicated way to explain something. BK Norton, a student at the WSU Criminal Justice and Criminology Department, said Friday that they didn't know Kohberger well, but didn't like him. People at WSU didn't like him. We interacted in class, but personally, I was not a big fan of Bryan because of his comments he made about the LGBTQ plus individuals. They said in an email, Associated Press. So I know a lot of people were saying that was the reason why they were trying to kick him out of Washington University, but I think he
Man,
was
they were
just a
kicking him
bunch of
out of
problems.
WSU because he was dang harassing girls. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on now. WSU actually had a harassment seminar after he left. You don't have a harassment seminar after a guy leaves if he's just a pure church boy.
Yeah. True. All right. So back to the original article here, kind of going back. Is this the one that has the application? It does not. It's the next one. Let me see. So it says here that two other witnesses, Ralph Vicino and Maggie Sanders, I'm not sure what their affiliation is, but they bring up the boxing gym, and I found this article here, and I think it's interesting. So this one goes on to say, Idaho student murders suspect Bryan Kohberger once boasted about his daily boxing routine while describing how he could cut fish and worked as a meat wrapper in a security job application. I boxed after school every day at Jesse Harris Boxing Gym on 209 next to Big Cheese Pizza when it was still open. I also attended a year of law enforcement program and a year of HVAC. His employment history showed 2 previous gigs, 7 months at Big Brown Bag Fish and Pay Lakes in 2011. So that's the only 2 jobs he's had, according to his employing history. And 4 months in the butcher and produce departments at BJ's Wholesale Club in Stroudsburg in 2015. He added that he had did some side work for his father, a district maintenance worker, learning how to pipe work and HVAC. So here's his actual application. And I thought there was some stuff that was actually kind of interesting here. So this goes on to say that, so basically what we read there, but a little bit further down, it says here, Big Brown Fish and Pay Lakes. He was a fish cutter. I cut fish to specifications of the customer. Work performed. I did multiple things here, mostly meat wrapping and produce positionings. I made sure tags were correct places and were matching on the outside shelves. I stocked the shelves with meat products, and I unstocked the shipment that came in overnight about 3 to 4 times a week. Doesn't say why he left.
He got fired.
For any of his jobs. He doesn't say why he left.
From every job. He even got fired from being a TA. I mean,
yeah. I mean, the only place that he said that he left is, it says, all right, for these 2 jobs, it is for the Big Brown Fish, says, was it needed for 1 season, which is a lie. That's not the reason why he left. They fired his ass. And then the next one says, had an opportunity to make money with my father and resigned.
okay. Sorry. I mean,
yeah.
I guess we all make our applications look better than they really are, though.
Yep.
I mean, if I got fired from a job, I don't guess I'd put fired. I'd put, oh yeah, I resigned. And he did resign from the security job. They didn't give him a choice but to resign.
No, he had a choice not to resign, but if he
Well, I
didn't
mean, but
resign,
you know
he
what
would
I'm
have gotten fired.
saying. Yeah, I mean, they gave him a choice. You resign, or we're going to, we'll put it on your record that you got fired, and we'll put the reason why you got fired. You lied.
Yeah. Let's see. It says here, for a list of professional trade, business, or civic activities offices you've held, it says, I am capable of what is considered pipe work. I solder. See, soldering is something that you have to do with your hands. It's it's wires typically. So you have little wires. It takes a little bit of precision and
A little bit of
dexterity.
dexterity. Wow.
Yeah, to solder. So,
But he couldn't
interesting.
tie a shoe.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Attach pipes and do some basic HVAC. I learned from this from my father. I was in District 11 Skills USA Regional Championship in 2011 for extemporaneous speaking. I learned how to do more HVAC and MCTI. I learned how to patrol and do basic security procedures for my year in law enforcement. It's been a year in law enforcement. I was a boxer.
He was a security guard.
No, he was in the law enforcement class, and he
Yeah.
didn't spend a full year. He was kicked out, and
Right.
they did do patrols and things of that nature. I was a boxer, and I'm still a runner. I believe in dedication and perseverance and are the most important skills learned from my activities. I lost 130 pounds at age 15 into age 16 while attending school at PVHS and MCTI. I believe this is proof that I have required dedication to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is his application for the Pleasant Valley School District. It says here, Kohberger wound up getting the job. So that's for the job there for the Pleasant Valley School District, starting out as a casual security guard, then earning a promotion to part-timer. The district outfitted him with size 13 boots, several XL shirts, a jacket, pants with 34-inch waist. However, his employment came to an end on June 22nd, 2021, when he submitted a resignation letter acknowledging that I understand that if I do not resign, I have the right for a school board hearing to determine if I should be dismissed from my employment with the school district. Not the only time that he's had to face, I guess, a school board about his employment and possible termination when he was at WSU.
Right.
Interesting stuff. The district declined to disclose further information about this departure. When they say further information, do you think that they disclosed some information there, Nina?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that the sources of this article would be the district.
Right.
Obviously, they have his application.
Yes.
So interesting things that we're going to see coming up here pretty soon. It says here some of Kohberger's claims in the application may have been exaggerated. Obviously so. Obviously so. And you know what? Let me do something real quick. I'm going to play this real fast.
I'm on mute.
All righty. I'm going to play this. This is Kohberger's former boss. Hopefully this not an ad.
Hundreds of kids come through here and mentored them, and they've gone on to do wonderful things. Pharmacists and teachers, and have their own electrical companies, and almost everything you could imagine. We're so proud of all those kids, and for us to be painted in some kind of light along with this terrible tragedy is very disturbing. And the truth of the matter is, he's here a very short time, 12 years ago, young kid, did our best to mentor him, and mutually decided the job wasn't for him. That was all there is to the story.
Mutually decided that the job was not for him. All to the story.
That's because he was busy planning.
Well, I mean, this is when he was younger. This is when he was learning about himself. He was probably, I think this was even before he stole his sister's phone. So he was about to get into some heavy drugs if he wasn't already in some heavy drugs. And his life was about to, start heading down a very dark path.
I do want to say something about the heroin. I don't know if you say that word on your show. I say what I want to on mine. But anyway, the H addiction. I looked up that word statistics, and in 2023, 0.02% high schoolers had tried H. That's not being addicted, just tried. Now that was in 2023. So his was back during 2011 to like 2015, and it would have been a whole lot lower back then.
Mm.
So, I mean, I guess I've never been able to wrap my head around a high school boy being addicted to H. That to me is, and I'm a recovering addict. So, I mean, that just blows my mind.
Well, I mean, what do we know about him at the time? We know that he was apparently being bullied. He's an awkward guy, doesn't hold very many friends. I think he was trying to find a group of people that would accept him.
Right.
And he probably just looked in the wrong places. I mean, he also had a lot of other problems. You know what I'm saying? Like he was a jerk to his father. You don't just like come across H, right?
Right.
You got to somehow get introduced to
your
it.
lap.
Exactly. Somebody's got to introduce it to you. You got to get introduced to it. You have to be hanging out with a certain type of person or certain groups of people to come in contact with those things. It's not just like, oh yeah, one day you're walking down the street, there's some there's some smack or whatever on the floor, and you're picking up a needle and a spoon, and you're going to town on it.
It's like picking up chewing gum off the floor.
Exactly. It's not. I mean, it can be. Don't get me wrong. You know, I used to, when I first moved to San Antonio, I had one apartment, and then I moved to another apartment so that I could be closer to my job. And when I moved there, I went jogging around the neighborhood, and I found a spoon and
Right. But you
and
didn't
a
pick it
needle
up
on the
and
floor.
try it.
Obviously not. And and you know, I think that when it comes to somebody, you know, getting involved in that, especially like the first time or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, screw the gateway drug. He went straight to the big dog.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that tells me he must have come in contact, obviously, with somebody who was
The only
involved in
way
that.
that I've been able to wrap my head around it is I've wondered if when he had his skin removal surgery, because that's a pretty painful, I mean, recovery from what I understand.
Hmm,
And, you know, most people, a lot of the people get hooked on the opioids. And when they can't get the scripts, they will go to H.
gotcha. Well, I mean, I wouldn't put it past like why or how. I know that he was going through his visual snow stuff, and he was self-diagnosing his mental issues that he was going through, and you know, maybe perhaps he was experimenting with drugs to try to figure out a way of helping himself, as you mentioned,
Well,
self-medicating for potential surgeries.
you got to consider too that the group he was hanging out with at the time, you know, I'm sorry, and I mean, no, I'm not sorry because I understand it. You know, when we're in active addiction, we think that everybody's hanging out with us because of us. Heck no, people, they didn't hang out with me because of me. They hung out so we could get high together.
Yeah, and he
But, you
probably
know,
took that the wrong way. You know,
if
people
you're
hanging
looking
out.
for acceptance, it can come off as acceptance.
Exactly. So, yeah. Well, there's somebody else that maybe Bryan Kohberger may have been interested in, and
Yeah,
that's
there is.
Ted Bundy. You know, I've been pretty vocal about Bryan Kohberger's uh, infatuation with Ted Bundy, down to his alibi being where it was, the Wildway Park, which is the location where Joyce LePage was found, who was a person who lost their life by, I believe, stabbing at Washington State University. And she was discovered out at the Wildway Park, and she was wrapped up in a WSU rug. And some speculate that Ted Bundy may have been involved. He was living in the state of Washington at the time. He was about 4 or 5 hours away. Joyce LePage would have fit the MO of the girls that Ted Bundy was going for: Caucasian, brunettes, parted hair. Joyce LePage fit that description.